Hi, this is Lori, and this is my homework for Paul McWhorter's Uno R4 course. This is for lesson 29, where we've been asked to make a one-player Pong game on the LED matrix. Now, the previous homework, we got the ball bouncing around our LED matrix. Whenever it would hit a wall, it changes direction. So we've got that part of it done. So now we need to add in a paddle and some controls for that paddle to be able to move it so that we can try to hit with our paddle, hit the bouncing ball and keep it in play. And first I'll point out how my setup is. You'll notice I don't have any buttons on here, and that's because I found it very hard to control the paddle with the two buttons. And you might remember, if you watched my lesson 28 homework, I used this potentiometer to set the speed of the ball. And while I was playing with the buttons, I didn't like how they worked, so I said, what if I use the potentiometer to control the paddle instead? So I gave up I could add another potentiometer, but that would be a good add to this homework, to control speed. But this one actually controls where the paddle is located. And I found that a much easier way to control the paddle instead of using the two buttons. So that's a change I made to the homework. And then just to remind everybody, the paddle will be on this side of the LED matrix. It'll move back and forth here. And the ball will bounce off of these walls, but it won't bounce off back here unless it comes in contact with the paddle. If it doesn't come in contact with the paddle, then the ball is going to go out, and that's end of game. All right, so let's take a look at the code. Now, I'll just describe the things that are different than my homework from before. So if you want to know how I moved the ball around carefully, you might want to look at that homework. I'm going to make a paddle that is 2 LEDs long, so I just need to track the row that those 2 LEDs are on. So paddle 1 and paddle 2 will form the whole paddle, and they just are set to what row they're in. And so paddle 2 will always just be one more than paddle 1. We'll set up our matrix and our variables as I had done in lesson 28. So positions, directions, and then an array so I can randomly select directions for the ball. So you can't kind of know how it's going to come at you. We'll have our potentiometer and our reading variable. And then I'm going to use what's called blink without delay to allow the paddle to move more quickly than the ball. And I'm going to let the loop that controls the location of the paddle run as fast as it can. But I'm only going to update the ball whenever this much time has gone by. So I'm going to keep track of the time, and then as soon as we exceed that interval, then we'll move the ball again. And so we can make it go faster if we make this number smaller. So right now it's set to moving the ball every 200 milliseconds, but we could certainly make it. I set it to such a slow speed so I could easily play, but you can make it faster to make it more challenging. As I said, you can make this controlled by another potentiometer, kind of like I did in lesson 28, but I just kind of got focused on making the potentiometer work to do the paddle movement. I have a variable for determining when the game is over. Starts off false. And then I have an end frame, so if we do lose the game, then this frame will come up on the LED matrix, and if you kind of look at it, it says out. So in the void setup, we'll set up our potentiometer pin, we'll start our matrix. We'll set a random seed off of one of the analog pins that's not being used. Not really sure how random that makes things. Not sure. I should look into that sometime. But that's what a lot of people do to get a nice random seed. And then I mentioned that I was having a lot of difficulty in lesson 28 because I was letting the ball get outside of the frame. And if you want to hear a long discussion of my troubles there, you can go back and look at that video. But the key to making my program work the way I wanted it to was to just not start the ball on an edge. So I won't start it on an edge. And I also decided you don't want the ball to start too close to the paddle, so I said you can't start before column 8. So it gives you some time to get ready for the ball to come at you. Here's our random direction, and we'll render the first positions of the paddle, and then we'll delay a second to let the person get ready for the ball to come. Then we'll have a while loop here which controls the game and decides whether you should continue to move the ball or whether you should put that out frame on and start the game over again. Now I found when I was twisting this potentiometer here to move the paddle, I didn't need to be able to use the whole thing, and if you try to turn this all the way around, you kind of have to pick up your fingers to do that. So I wanted it to only work within a certain range so that I could, I'll turn it this way, so I could just, hold it between my thumb and finger and not have to pick it up. So I decided to use the middle part of the full range, and so whenever it's outside of that, it just gets set to 256 or 768. And then when we pick the new paddle position for paddle 1, we'll map 256 to 768 to 0 and 6, to 0 to 6. So that's the rows that paddle 1 could be in. And then here's where we'll decide whether we need to update the paddle position. So we'll move it if paddle 1 new doesn't equal the last time paddle 1 was set. And we'll turn off the old positions for the paddle, and we'll then turn on the new positions for the paddle and reset our indicator, paddle 1 new to paddle 1. We'll make sure the ball is on there always, and we'll render that to the matrix so the new position of our paddle is always on there, plus wherever the ball is at that moment. We'll read the current time. And then we'll determine if enough time has passed that we should move the ball. If enough time hasn't passed, we're going to skip all this. We're not going to move the ball. We'll come back around and see where the potentiometer is. If enough time has passed, we'll reset previous millis so that we can keep track. And then we'll flip directions. So you can see all we had to do is kind of change how we're checking for whether we should bounce or not, change direction. And, you can see here is where, wrong direction. Here is where I'm checking to see if we're in contact with the paddle. And if we are, then we'll flip directions. But if we're not in contact with the paddle, then game over is true and we're going to stop. We'll turn off the old position, and then if game over is still false, we'll update the new position and wait just a little bit for debouncing. I don't have the buttons in here anymore, but I think it's probably a good idea not to go too fast through this. So I set it to 50, but we could probably take it and make it go faster even. And then if we come out of all that, that means we're outside of the while loop, and that means game over is true. Game over is true now. So we'll put the end frame onto our LED matrix. We'll wait a couple seconds so people can read it. We'll reset the game over to false, and we'll blank out the frame to start over again, and that's just to make sure. Not really entirely sure I need all that. And then we'll put the paddle back on wherever it was when we last quit, and we'll put all that to the LED matrix. We'll get new starting positions and directions, wait half a second, and start the game over again. So that's how my code works. And let's turn it on and get it going. So I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to double check and make sure I've still got it in. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. It's very bright in here today, so it's a little hard to see. And maybe I'm going to come down here and make this section just a little bit bigger so we can see it. Yeah, that might help. All right, so you can see that I'm already lost in the time I was here. Yeah, okay, pay attention, Lori. All right, so here it comes. It might help if I look over here instead of at the monitor, huh? There we go. So yeah, if I take it this slow, I can play. I'm not particularly good at Pong. Yeah. There we go. And you can see I can move the paddle much faster than the ball is moving. So that blink without delay is a good approach to doing that. When I got this all squared. Hopefully you could see all that. Now that's my Pong game. And maybe I'll take it further another day, but I probably do that on a better display. I think on my other channel I might. I've been planning to do a Pong game for a long time on it, and maybe I'll give that a go with maybe a Pico instead. But we'll see. But for now, I want to thank Paul for the great series of lessons. It really was helpful, and I want to thank you for watching.